Hello, hello. Welcome to Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go. I'm your host, Tara, and the founder of the blog Travel with TMc, which is where this adventure all began over a decade ago. Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go, is a fun and quirky show that delves into everything travel and adventure, whether from the road, in the air, or in between here and there. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and give it a 5-star review. These two simple, easy, and free actions make a huge impact on the show being able to reach a wider audience. So thank you so much for your support. In season 2, my guests and I cover a wide range of travel topics. And it's my hope, as always, that you'll hear somebody who resonates with how you travel. You'll hear yourself represented in the show, or you'll see yourself represented in the show. At the same time, it would be so cool if you heard a different way of traveling and went, wow, I want to try that as well. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of inspiration here for you too. This week on Traveling Through Life, a podcast on the go, we chat with Calvin from Calvin Chronicles and Cubicles to Passport. Calvin's a good friend of mine who I met in a hostel back in 2018 at the very first travel conference I ever went to, TravelCon. Calvin and I have kept in touch since then. In fact, just a couple of days ago, it's January of 2026 as I record this. Just a couple of days ago, he sent me a text saying, "Look up at the sky and wave. I'm flying over you right now." So that was pretty cool. Well, on the podcast, we talk about everything from his early years growing up in Germany as a military brat. And for those of you who don't know, I'm not saying Calvin's not a nice person. Brat actually stands for, or originally stood for, British Regiment Attached Traveler, and applied to the kids who were living abroad due to their parents being in the military. We also talk about something that linguistically I thought was so fascinating: military accents. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. I hadn't. And it just kind of made me pause for a second. You'll literally hear me pause in the podcast as I kind of take it in. It was really cool. He also talks about later growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, how he's a picky eater and how he handles that while traveling the world. That was a really funny part of the conversation. And his decision to leave a successful corporate life behind, sell his house, and become a travel content creator and photographer, which, fortunately or unfortunately, happened right before the pandemic. That's a pretty wild story. We end the show talking about his profound gratitude and the new perspectives he's gained from all of his years traveling abroad. I think you're going to love this. Calvin's such a lovely individual. He's got so much enthusiasm for what he does, and he's always reinventing himself and trying something new, which I admire a lot. All right. Thanks for listening, and let's dive in.
We can officially begin.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a special guest on today. His name is Calvin. We met in a hostel. Oh gosh, back in 2018.
2018.
We were both we were at the TravelCon conference, our very first one. And Calvin has become a good friend of mine in the travel creator space. He is a multi-talented individual. His photography is phenomenal. His podcasting, he's on YouTube. He is a historian like no other. Calvin is also the friendliest guy you'll ever meet, and I am so thrilled to have him on the podcast today. So welcome, Calvin.
Wow, I did not pay for that introduction, so I'm scared of the bill now. That's the best introduction I've ever heard. So I am happy that you brought up the hostel, because I was like, wait a second, should I, if I just mention that we were roommates, people might take that wrong.
No, for me, it's like a plug for people to go stay in hostels, because it's been what is that now? 7 years we've been friends because of that. That's
going on
so
7.
cool.
Yep. Going on 7.
Yeah. And no, I think everybody should stay in hostels.
So, and I actually, funny thing about that, I still keep in touch with one other of our roommates, and then somebody else that was in the same hostel at the same time, but different rooms. I probably keep in touch with about a half a dozen people from that hostel stay.
Amazing. That's super cool. It was good vibes there, you know?
Super cool.
Calvin, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? Tell the people who you are, what you do, and where you're calling in from today.
I am in Louisiana right now. So I am, well, who I am now. So I am a photographer. I am a travel junkie and I enjoy history. I try to combine all three of those as often as I can. So that is a lot of the things that I get out from travel. I was in Texas for over 30 years after university, but I started traveling so much, I actually sold my house and I kind of just am traveling all the time. So I don't have an official landing spot all the time. So I'm just usually, if I'm not traveling, I either stay with, family in a couple of different places across the country. So today I am in Louisiana, which is where I grew up, which is also where my mom lives. So if I'm not traveling, it's kind of spend some time with her and she's happy to have some company when I'm not on the road. So I'm in
Yeah.
Louisiana, and if you are familiar with Louisiana, I'm from North Louisiana. Everybody always says New Orleans, but Shreveport, Louisiana, is at the complete opposite end of the state, and a lot of people would say it's a whole different Louisiana. So, yeah,
Okay.
most people just kind of stereotype Louisiana as just New Orleans, but we're the other
Got it.
Louisiana.
And I have to admit, I don't know much about Louisiana. What was it like growing up there? What is your Louisiana like?
It is. You still have your stereotypical Cajun foods. I am a picky eater, so I don't eat a whole lot of that. But I most people actually kind of consider this part of Louisiana more like Texas. So, so like I said, if people are coming for a Louisiana experience, this is not the place that they would originally default to. But there definitely is history here. There is a lot of history, I guess, that people don't realize. So, um,
Mm.
just going into history. So, something interesting about Shreveport, if you're familiar with the American Civil War, so that ended. Everybody usually you hear about that in like Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama. But the some of the last major battles were actually in Louisiana, within an hour from where I live. And the
Oh,
last
wow.
place that the Confederate flag officially flew was in Shreveport.
What?
So,
Wow.
yeah, and like I said, a
Uh,
lot of people don't know that, but, living here and I didn't know that for the longest time even living here, but it's something that I've discovered just through digging through history here. So, there is cool stuff to see here, just that sometimes people aren't always aware of what to go and you default, New Orleans, things like that, but New Orleans was actually one of the earlier first places to be under, Union control, so not a whole lot of stuff there. They weren't a part of the actual war, but there was still stuff going on here in this area.
Interesting. And you know what? I usually get people to mention their handles and stuff at the end, but we got to tell people your YouTube and Instagram and all that right now because I know you're just going to be giving us so much good information. People are going to need to subscribe right away. Where can people find you online?
I share my travel, so I'm a whole lot of places, but I share my travel stories, like the adventures and the things that I discover along the way at the Calvin Chronicles. Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me, and then I can, everything links from there. But it's just Calvin Chronicles altogether. I have started because people keep asking, how do you do that? How do you afford to travel? Like, how can I do what you're doing? So I started kind of doing education on that same platform and then kind of realized that maybe some people just want the travel education, some people want the stories. So I started a different handle called Cubicles to Passports. And that is strictly related to my international travel and also educating people on how to see the world with their own eyes without breaking the bank. So I started that shortly after. Well, I intended to start it right after the pandemic, and I was like, "Whoop, that time." I'll come back to this a little later. So I've really been working on that over the last year. So Cubicles to Passports is kind of from my story, how I actually started traveling. So my background before I was going all over the world, I worked in IT sales for nearly 3 decades, and I most of the time worked in office cubicles. So, there's all the jokes like Dilbert and things like that, the office space jokes, and that was my life. And so when I took my first extended trip out of the country, I basically had my whole thing was that I was trading my cubicle in for my passport. So that kind of became a thing. And then when I started doing the education, I say that's a good thing to name it.
Yeah, definitely. So YouTube, Instagram, folks, check out Calvin Chronicles and Cubicles to Passport. You also, in addition to Instagram and YouTube, you have a podcast, which was the first podcast I ever got to be a guest on. And that's Cubicles to Passports as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you your passport using or your passport life started long before the cubicles, though. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up? It's so unique.
It did. So my father, he was in the Air Force, and I had the opportunity in kindergarten to go to Germany. So he was stationed in Germany for 3 years, and so I got my first passport at age 5. And so, really good situation for me because a lot of the things that you take into adulthood are kind of related to like, how you grow up. So I was fortunate to, even before I went overseas, I had lived in 3 places before that. I was born in Houston, spent time in California, and then also to Arkansas before going to Germany. So I lived in 3 places before going overseas.
You
So
got that momentum
yep.
just inside you, eh?
Yep, I don't know where they are, but I know I have them. I still have the wings that they give you. This
Oh,
was a Delta flight, so I still have the wings that they give, to children on flights.
I have a story about this.
So
When I was little, that's so funny you brought up the wings. When I was little, my uncle and aunt took me to Arizona for a trip. And, I remember on the flight, my uncle saying to the stewardess, "Can we get her some wings?" And I was terrified, Calvin. I thought that they were gonna, like, toss me out the plane wings. I think I was, like, 5 years old, so I was like, "No, I don't want these. I don't want wings." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Get her wings. Get her wings." And so eventually the stewardess comes back, and I'm dreading her returning, and she gave me the little pin with the wings, and I still have it somewhere.
right.
Uh, but I was like,
Oh,
"I don't want those."
oh wow! Wouldn't even want to imagine that because that was pretty high. That's pretty high
Yeah.
up. So
When did airlines stop giving those out? Do you know? And why did they start giving them out in the first place?
I'm not old enough to know why they started, but I'm trying to think. I think if you ask for them on certain airlines, you can still get them, but I don't think it's like just a everything to kids now. But I'm sure that it was just to, again, to kind of make it fun, for kids. So, uh, and then I also, and this is something that doesn't happen anymore, but I did get to go up to the cockpit and meet the pilot co-pilot.
Wow,
So
that's
yeah,
cool.
so that is definitely a thing in the past, but that was something kind of cool to be able to do.
Amazing, amazing. And how long did you live in Germany for?
I was there for 3.5 years. So I went in the middle of kindergarten and then I stayed through third grade.
Cool. And do you remember anything from living there? You were
I
pretty young.
remember, so I remember things. I wish that I held on to more German. So we were taught German for every year that we were there. And I mean, the only thing I can do now, I can count to 10. I think I might know one or two dirty words, and that's about it. So
What were they
um
teaching you at 3?
so well, that wasn't in class, that was on the
Yeah, no.
playground. I was on the playground. You learned a bunch of stuff there. But I know that we were in third grade. We would have done it in fourth grade, but I moved. But they were teaching us how to go to like a restaurant and how to place orders and things like that. So um, it was, I said I wish I had more of the language, but like I said, when you move to Louisiana and nobody speaks German, that's kind of about it for that. So one thing that is interesting though, because I lived there as a child, I actually learned how to play European football before I even knew really much about American football because I lived on a military base eventually, but when I first moved there, we lived what's called on the economy, but off base. And everybody was playing, we call it soccer, but everybody was playing. That's what I learned how to play first. And And then as I got older, I moved to the States and, people, hey, run a button route. And I'm like, what? Because I didn't know all this stuff. Like, who is this kid,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I, picked it up. I watched it on TV, but like I said, I had no idea, what was going on, how to actually do it. So I learned
Right.
I was the only kid that knew how to play soccer.
That's too neat. Wow, what a fun fact. And so when you were about like 8, you said when you moved back to the
I was
States-ish?
9 when I moved back.
9?
Yep.
Did you live in other countries after that, or was your dad stationed? Did you guys stay in the US from there on?
US from there. So let's see, 1979. So he was about halfway through his career. And both of my parents are actually from Louisiana. So
Okay.
he could have moved after that. So we had moved every 3 years up until that point when we got here. Um, he had the opportunity to move again, but it would have required. I'm sorry, he had the opportunity to get promoted. He turned down his last promotion so that he could stay here because
Mm.
his parents were 90 minutes away, and then my mother was like another 30 minutes. So we were able to get to 80% of our family within a 4 hour, 5 hour drive. So there were some in Texas as well. So I had a feeling that we weren't going to move again. And we did not. So a lot of times in military families, even if they have the opportunity to get home before they retire, they'll stay there a lot, or a lot of times after they retire, that's where they're coming back anyway. So
Mm.
we were able to purchase a house. So I figure we probably weren't going anywhere. So
Yeah, yeah, nice. One of the first things I remember you and I talking about in the hostel was this notion of TCK because you had lived in Germany as a little kid. And for those who aren't familiar with the term, TCK stands for third culture kid. It's when you grow up in an environment outside of your parents' culture, sort of idea. Was that something that like resonated with you, or were you like, no, because I was younger, or
it is. So there is, I actually read, so I think you recommended the book. Somebody recommended the book to me. So I read through the book, and it was very insightful because some things you just kind of know. But
Mm,
then actually kind of seeing things from other perspectives that kind of filled in some different things, both from people that have experienced that and people that have not. So um, being able to go to a different place, and in my particular case, it was not just one culture. So I actually think that there is a military culture in itself. So not
oh,
just
100%.
Sherman. And so my experience is kind of more on the military side. I even just in my voice, I actually kind of say, some people say like, Southern accent or this accent or that accent. I actually consider myself to have a military accent because what that means is my voice doesn't necessarily come from where I live. It's from all the other people that are coming in too. So I might be on a base in Louisiana, but I'm with somebody that grew up in New York, California, and they lived all over the world too. So I think there is a somewhat kind of unique, sound that you can kind of maybe even guess that, okay, hey, were you a military kid? So like I said, I lived in the South most of the time outside of Germany, but I've lived with and have been friends with in those places people from all over the US and the world. Um, so
That's so
so you had those
interesting.
things. There were certainly times I remember in Germany, like you learn things, like they tell you some things about, hey, this is how they do things, in Germany or things like that. But I remember one of the first days that we were there, we were out and, I was in there kindergarten, but I remember me and my sister, my brother wasn't around yet, but we had lunch and we went outside to play and like it was quiet, but we were like, oh, we're the first ones to finish with lunch, So we're out there and then like windows start opening up and like people are like yelling and everything and in different languages too. So like I remember we had Germans, Italians, I think there were some people from Poland there. So like, we're getting yelled at in all these different languages. And I'm like, I don't know what they're saying, but something tells us that we should be quiet or something. And so we find out later that there was like I'm saying siesta because I don't recall what it was called, but there was like a quiet time,
Yeah.
there, or at least where we lived. in the afternoon, and nobody told us. So
Oh,
yeah,
no.
so we learned that in a abrupt uh,
Yeah.
abrupt way. Um, and then just little things like I remember, where I live now, like you go to the grocery store shopping market, you get a big shopping basket and, go through the aisles and fill up. And then that's like your, food for like maybe like, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And there it was kind of different. Like you went every day, you had your own basket, you would go and you'd pick up bread and, stuff. And that's, maybe 1 or 2 days meal. So like little differences there that you remember, and walking more. So you
Mm,
walked 2 places. The only walking that we really didn't do is when we were going from the economy to the base. So because you had to drive, to get to the base. But like so, once we were in our neighborhood, you pretty much walked everywhere. Because I
cool.
remember, yeah, because my mom didn't drive, because you could walk everywhere. So
Right.
like little things like that.
So interesting. When you were talking about having like a military accent, I studied linguistics and languages, so I'm always fascinated by these different linguistic components of our life. And I've never heard this before. I'm so curious, but it makes sense if you're living in a place where people from other places also live, that you would end up like not neutralizing each other, but like melding and mixing together in terms of how you speak. And now I wanna hear how other people speak who've lived on military bases
Right.
and, analyze that and compare that.
And
That's
for what it's
cool.
worth, that's not anything that I've read. That's my own scientific, you know, um, analysis of it. So, because
Yeah.
people have tried to, I guess, analyze, hey, where are you from? And just from how, and they can't quite put their finger on it. And so that's just kind of analyzing it myself. That's kind of the conclusion that I've come to is, because I'm, with all these, different people from all over the place, you kind of pick up stuff because people like you do pick up things if you're
Mhm,
around places like so.
mhm,
This isn't really to do with me, but Louisiana, North Louisiana, South Louisiana, you have like Cajuns, and that's a complete different, accent. Really, it's its own language. And we
mhm.
had a school event. We were down there for, I think it was 2 weeks. And we came back, and like people were like, you guys sound different, because some people, they were kind of picking up on the little Cajun accent stuff. And I remember there was one person that like this, like went with it for like, it was like weeks, and they were still like, okay, now is this now intentional, because people kind of brought it up or not? Because but there were some people that were kind of like inadvertently kind of like picked it up a little bit,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
kind of end up, even whether it's just sayings, like if you end up meeting somebody and they've got like some little quirky saying that may have been unique to them, but if you hang out with them enough, you might end up catching yourself using it too, and you're like, wait a second, I'm using that phrase or that word. So, but I think the accents kind of play into that too.
Oh, 100%. When I moved to Dublin, the friend that I moved with was also from my hometown, and I don't know if it was subconsciously or consciously, because she was also very, word oriented, very well read, very articulate, I think paid a lot of attention to what she said, but she picked up on a lot of the slang and the lingo and even a bit of the lilt while we were in Dublin. And I was hesitant, like, from a conscious point of view, I was hesitant to do it because I was like, "I don't know if they're gonna, like, make fun of me or, whatever else." But since then, I will, like, slide into using Irishisms when I talk to people from Ireland, or I find that, like, my cadence changes, and it's not a conscious change at this point. So I know what you're talking about from both, like, a psycholinguistics point of view and I think sociolinguistics as well, how we um, subconsciously and consciously fit into the groups that we're in with regards to language. It's so interesting.
It'd probably be an interesting study.
Yeah, yeah, there's lots out there. So cool. Oh, I love this. So okay, travel bug started early for you. You'd lived in 3 different cities, you'd moved across to Europe, you'd come back to Louisiana. Do you remember, like, did you guys do road trips or travel much as a family growing up once you were based back in the States? Or when you were in Europe, did you guys have the opportunity to travel Europe at all?
We did take some road trips in Germany. I don't remember all of them, but one that I do actually, well, there's I'm gonna tell the story. but
Okay.
I'm gonna tell the first one first. So, Heidelberg Castle. It's a well, most castles are usually have some historic history behind them, but we took a day trip to Heidelberg, and they had there was a battle there that they would commemorate through like fireworks and like a light show. So I do remember that, and like so we went to go and check that out, and everybody likes fireworks, and when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, it's even more exciting, and that was nighttime, so got to stay up past bedtime, to go and
Yeah.
check that out. So that was a pretty cool one. And the story I was processing of was I really going to tell this story or not? But we went. I don't remember the town that we went to, but I was fortunate enough. One of my cousins, older cousins, was also in the military at the same time, and he was at a different base in Germany when we were there. So we ended up meeting somewhere. And again, I don't remember exactly what city this was, but we were supposed to go to a beach, and it was a man-made beach. And I remember that we actually had to kind of go uphill to get to the beach because it was man-made, and we get here, and I'm shorter than everybody, and I look up at my cousin, and my cousin, like, you kinda see his eyes, like, they kinda, like, light up, said, "Hey,"
Oh, I think I know where
and
this is going.
I'm like, "Why is he so excited?" And then the next thing I know, hands go over my eyes,
Yeah.
and we end up turning around, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And it's like, we're the beach is dirty." Something, they just made up something where we're not going to the beach. And
Yeah.
years later, I actually found out, it was that we had stumbled up on a nude beach. So,
For sure.
so I was like, "Okay, well, but they got me. I was shorter, so everybody else saw going
Yeah.
up the hill. So, like, they got me there, and so yeah, so I was like, yeah, mom, dad looking out for us. But it was just funny,
Yeah.
like my cousin, like, cause he was probably in his like mid-20s then, so like,
Oh.
whatever. So he was excited,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, no, yeah, we got to go somewhere else.
Too funny. So since you became an adult and started to do things on your own, how did you choose where to travel as you got older and weren't traveling with your family?
Um, A lot of time, well, multiple reasons. So it could have been like some history things that I was going. So even going back to part of my big Asia trip, I was picking stuff that I wanted to see because of history. So my mom had a big interest in World War II history. So like, all the movies growing up, and like even like books that she would read, I'd pick up and read books, and then I would read age appropriate books as well, tied to World War II. So as I started having the ability to go to places and like, oh, hey, this happened here, that might
Mm.
be some reason, and it might not be just World War II history, but if there is something historically interesting, then that might either play into the country itself or just factor into my itinerary.
Uh-huh.
Um, some places it can just be like I've had to travel for work sometimes, so that will dictate a destination, and then maybe it's okay, what's nearby. And then the other reason is like knowing people. So the cool thing once you kind of start traveling, you have people that either live in different places or they're going to different places. Um, One of my best friends lived in the Philippines for work for 6 years.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually funny because that was my second international trip after going to third, but as an adult, second adult international trip. But it took him 3 years to get me to agree going that because I never imagined myself on a plane that long, even for a travel.
Okay.
Because I mean, Europe's a shorter flight. I mean,
Yep.
it's 6, 7 hours just to get over there, but Asia it's a few more hours just to see land again, regardless of what country you're going to. So
Yeah.
I just didn't see myself going that far. I was like, yeah, I'll go back to Germany. I'll go here, as I don't want anything to do with Asia. So 3 years. Just really like, come on, come on, come on over. And finally, I was kind of like, it's free place to stay. I don't have to,
Right.
don't have to worry about a hotel. I had kind of just started learning a little bit about points and miles, and somebody kind of gave me like a cool way to kind of make that trip a little more bearable. And I'm
Mhm.
still happy to stay for,
Yeah.
for that insight, because I probably would have figured it out at some point, but having somebody say, "Hey, here's how you do it. This is what you do," and and it changes things
Big
for the
time.
flight. So finally went over there, and it was so great. And it was actually the big, like, I thought Germany was, or Europe was, a culture shock, but Philippines or Asia, for somebody that's lived in Western civilization, it's a change.
Mhm.
And it's a scary change for some people, but it was really some of the first times that I saw just completely different ways of life. I mean, Germany, yes, cities look the same, architecture slightly different, but things are, mostly the same, slightly different here and there. Philippines, all kinds of different stuff there. And yes, you've got your cities and things that look familiar like home. But then you see people living in very, very different ways than you. In a lot of cases, that was in um, less affluent situations as well. And I've got some stories there. So, one of my first nights there, and I've been to the Philippines twice now, but one of the first times I was there, I was walking around one evening, and I passed a family of four or five, but two or three toddler age children, and it was obvious that they were sleeping on the street.
Mm.
And you see that in the U.S. You see people on the street. Now, I had seen individuals on the street. I'd never seen families on the street, and it was obvious that they were on the street. And my reaction, like, I'm feeling sorry for them moment, but and this is all quick, it takes me the time
Mhm.
to share it, but I'm about to have this emotion, oh, how sad. But then I look and I see that the kids, they're smiling, and the mom is smiling, and it kind of threw me for a loop, because, like, here I am, I'm about to feel sorry for this family because they're out on the street and they're smiling. And so, like I said, that was a culture shock moment for me. But the other thing is that nobody was bothering them. Like, you could
Mm.
tell that that's where they were staying. It wasn't, hey, this is where we're camping tonight. That's where they stayed, like, all the time, or, for at least, it wasn't just tonight, like tomorrow night,
Mhm.
the few days before that. And the fact that nobody was bothering them, and that they could have something to smile about. Like, I learned so much in that, brief few second, interaction, the things that we worry about here, and we joke about first world problems, but I mean, there's so many things that we get bent out of shape about, that have absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Yep.
But you have people that are dealing with a lot more different circumstances, worse circumstances, and they can find something to smile about. And, like, I can, I'm not better. I'm not perfect about it, but I'm a lot better in, like, how I look at things.
Mhm.
Not just from that specific interaction, but it's one of those things that kind of gets you, one, grateful for what you have, but then also just kind of, I don't need to be bent out of shape about all these different things that are going on. So, like, big culture shock there. And then just even, like, minor things, like, there were, I was driving around, I think, for 3 days, and my friend's driving, of course, and I'm looking out the window at all this stuff or whatever, and then somehow it hits me that, wait, where are the traffic signals? Like I said, I didn't, didn't see, like, there were certain areas where they had traffic signal, but when you kind of got out of the city center, it was still just as busy, but, like, there's no intersection, no stop sign, no traffic lights in some areas, and it all worked, but it was just kind of weird, like, once I realized it, So I'm really glad for my friend that he got me to go over there, because
Yeah.
I think that's what really, like, yes, I was kind of traveling around and going places, but I was kind of staying, like, done Europe, I gone to the Dominican Republic, and I enjoy, getting up to Canada when I can. I had a
Oh,
streak where I
wow.
was going up there every year. I'm behind now. I do need to get up there again soon. But I've been to Toronto 3 times. I've been to Vancouver
And
twice.
you're
So
saying it like a
uh,
local. Toronto. I'm impressed, Calvin.
so yeah, so I was doing that, but yeah, just the opening up the door to Asia, it is probably my favorite continent now, just because of the, again, history, like, going places. I'm bouncing around right now, but Cambodia, to go
Yeah.
there, I remember I was in, Angkor Wat, which everybody knows the one temple that's there, but I mean, that's a chain of different temples. So,
Mhm.
going around and like, hey, this one was built 900 years ago. This one was built 1,000 years ago. This one was built 1,200 years ago. And the United States Canada history, we're knocking on 250. So, and yes, there's other civilizations that have been in this land, but I mean, to actually go, there's some landmarks here, but like to go to something that's a built structure that
Mm.
was 4 times older than the country where live now, it's
Mhm.
kind of for me, and some people, they tell you that I see this and it's cool, and that's that, but, like, I actually kinda take in, hey, like, how do these people build this? Like, they didn't have,
Yeah.
power tools and things like that, so I kinda take those things in wherever it actually is. So those are just kind of certainly different things when you kind of take in the different factors, but then when you meet people and things kind of work a little bit different, and like people live in different situations. And I am going to, I'm not sure, I may not mention the country because I am still in touch with this person, but it was a really really and I didn't talk to them about it in advance, but this was a really really uh, transforming moment for me. So this was a tour guide, and it was in Asia, um, but I had met him on previous travels. So I've been to multiple countries multiple times in Asia, and he said, "Hey, before we go out on our tour, like we're gonna go, let's go have a drink." And I'm okay, cool, we'll go do that. And I'm thinking we're going to a bar,
Mm.
and we walk through an alley. And you've been to Asia, so things look different,
Mhm.
when you go around. Like it may
Yep.
not look like, if you were maybe in the US or Canada, you're kind of like, hey, this, I don't know if I want to walk down here. But Asia, like, it's normal, and like things might look older on the outside when you're kind of walking through. So we're
Yep.
walking through, and go through a tunnel, kind of dark, not a whole lot of light, and we stop at like a little booth, like only maybe picnic table size, and we sit down, and there's somebody there, and they serve us a beer. And when we were walking, I noticed on one side there were like a bunch of curtains and stuff. And at first I was kind of thinking, maybe, how like you got like the markets and things, because it
Okay.
was somewhat early. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe like markets, and they're not open yet, but we're just kind of coming in early to kind of have a drink or whatever. So still nothing. I don't realize really anything. I'm just kind of taking and observing things. So we sit down, we have the beer, and I look around, and then I notice also that there's not just the level here, there were like other levels like above, like a second and third level with like
Mhm.
curtains and things, and people, heads in and out and stuff. And still I don't know what's going on. And then my friend, he turns around and he starts talking to somebody like he knows them and everything. And they're chit-chatting. And then he's like, that's my uncle. That's like, he sleeps there. And then he turns around and he's like, I sleep up there. And then it hits me, he's invited me to his home, basically,
Oh.
and so, and for what it was like, I don't know what you call it. Some people call it squatting, but basically they it just kinda set up, and, we're not necessarily a legal situation, but this is
Right.
where we can live and nobody's bothering us, type of thing. And so when I realized what was going on, like I said, it hit me from a whole lot of different angles, because
Mm.
how many times do people invite you to their home anywhere, even at home? Like that's a somewhat intimate thing. Like, you don't just invite
Mhm.
everybody in your home. So I'm like,
Most
okay, wow,
definitely.
he invited me into his home. So I'm going in, I'm taking that in. And then I'm also now realizing, what this was. It's like a less than ideal situation that, I don't know that people would volunteer to live in those conditions. And he still invites me to that, you
Mhm.
know? And then so I had a whole bunch of things going on, and it was kind of, once I realized the gravity of what was going on, it was kind of an emotional experience for me.
Definitely.
Because again, like, he invited me into his home, and I say, if I had somebody in the States or anywhere else that lives in someplace like that, would they have even thought about, inviting me or anybody,
Mhm.
to that place? And so it was a real special moment, for me. And like I said, I just don't share a whole lot about it, because like I said, I'm still really in touch with this person, and I don't know really how they feel about that. But
Mhm.
um and for me, it was a transformational moment to be a part of that. And it's actually probably one of my most special times from all of my travels to experience something like that.
That's really special. It's so true what you said about the home being an intimate space, and I find especially in North America, it's not a common gathering space anymore, even though we don't have piazzas and plazas to gather in that way. It's I don't know if it's a pandemic thing or what, but yeah, being invited to someone's home is um a special kind of invitation, I
Right.
think. Yeah, and that hospitality that comes with it and the yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us, Calvin. Do you have any travel traditions, whether it's something you do before your trip, during it, or afterwards?
Um, I don't know that I have traditions. So I do probably things a little bit different than some people might do, particularly if I go to Asia. I actually I don't go to sleep the night before if I travel to Asia. I kind of 2 reasons. I use that to kind of pack, but then I kind of use that to help get on
Mm,
local time zone
mhm,
because it's about a 12-hour difference depending on whether it's daylight savings or something like that. It's like 12, 13, 14-hour time difference.
mhm,
So I learned that if I don't go to sleep on my flights, and most of my flights are in the morning from the US going to Asia. So I leave on a 10 o'clock AM flight here, it's 10 PM there. And so by the time I get up in the air, settle and things like that, meal service, you know, 2 hours
mhm,
later, I'm now on their midnight time. So for my head, that I sleep now because I've stayed up all night. I'm ready to go to sleep. I sleep away some of that, 12, 14 hour flight. And I think it helps me to get on local time zone or just a little bit better. So, because I can usually you land morning time or the flights that I take, they're morning arrivals
mhm,
and I just drop my bags off and I go. So I found that helps me because I know some people is like, hey, I'm not staying up all night or like I can't, but you're gonna suffer at some point. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
hey,
true.
let me get the suffering out of the way. But for me, it's kind of like that's kind of like when the excitement goes. So like if I book a trip, like some people are, hey, are you excited? And I was like, I'm not like until it's time to start putting stuff in bag or going to the airport. Like I say, I'm not like the kid on Christmas counting down, like things like that. Like I might look forward to a trip, but like once the trip is like booked and I know what's going to happen, it's
Mm,
that. And like I don't turn the switch on until it's like go time. So,
mhm.
so that kind of helps me there. I could kind of get into it and
Yep.
get prepared. So I don't know if that's a tradition because I only do that going to Asia. Something I guess this could be considered a tradition. So I'm probably one of the more picky eaters out there, but I do try to experiment with local food when I get to a country. But something that I do try to do is even kind of get something that seems familiar. So some people say you absolutely shouldn't do this, but I try a McDonald's everywhere I go.
I love it.
So, like I said, because there's something different somewhere. Like
Right,
I know, like
right.
Japan. I just went there, and I didn't actually try this one, but they have a teriyaki burger.
Mm,
New Zealand, they have it's called a kiwi something, a kiwi burger, but it actually has a egg on top of
okay,
it, and I don't know
okay.
any place at McDonald's that you can get an egg on your burger, but that's something that you have in New Zealand. So yeah, it's familiar, but like the menu is usually different. Like they've got, I think everybody has the Big Mac, everybody has like the little double cheeseburger thing, but from there, it's all different. So, like the Philippines, they actually serve like white rice and brown gravy that goes along with the chicken deal. So, a friend, my friend, he was telling me about that, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Because that's a staple in Louisiana. And I was like, "What? What's that? I've got to see this." And that trip was actually the one that kind of made me, "Hey, I got to see what the McDonald's do like in different places," because that was just so off the rails from what they had. So, like, they had rice as a side dish. They have spaghetti as a side dish at the one in the Philippines, and that's a common side dish in the Philippines anywhere is like spaghetti.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was like, yeah, I got to see what the McDonald's is doing in like the different places.
Okay.
So tradition.
So interesting. I've like heard stories of people doing that before, but I haven't met somebody who or it hasn't come up in conversation with friends of mine who travel that that's one of the things that they do. That's neat. Do you have a favorite McDonald's item from around the world?
Um, I don't know. It's gonna be the Philippines one. It's gonna be the
Okay,
Philippines one with it's a little chicken patty and the rice and gravy.
cool.
That was I probably ate that more than I should have. It was so good, and affordable. It was like less than $2,
Wow.
less than $2 US for that.
Yeah,
So that's the favorite one.
that's nice. Changing tracks a little bit. So you and I met 2018, a couple years before the big 2020. How did the pandemic affect your travel plans or your goals? Yeah, I can see you. For anybody who's not watching the YouTube, Calvin's starting to laugh over
Uh,
there.
well, it was really, really probably it affected everybody.
Mhm.
It was somewhat unique for me because my extended travel journey started right before
Mhm.
the pandemic hit. So I left my corporate life in November of 2019, and
Oh.
um, that was a awesome set of circumstances that led to me being able to take that trip. It was originally just supposed to be a vacation to Singapore, but I had a set of circumstances that never would have come up again. My friend that lived in the Philippines was moving back to the States, so it was kind of like last call for a free place to stay in the Philippines.
Mhm.
Um, I had an opportunity to get to Australia, and then I knew some people in New Zealand. So one thing just kind of like dominoed together, and I was like, I've got to take this opportunity. So I left a super awesome job. Some people thought I was crazy. I'll come back to that in a bit if you'd like. But
Mhm.
to the question, I spent 4 months traveling through. It was supposed to be an open-ended trip through Southeast Asia. So I had in my head about 6 months, which would have taken me to May of 2020. But in January, I started, seeing, a couple things on the news. And for what it's worth, not to get too political about anything, but news in Asia was different than what was probably getting reported elsewhere. So I was, seeing, real information. I actually had a hostel roommate who was visiting from Wuhan. So
Oh,
uh, I
wow.
was
Oh my
getting real,
goodness.
I was getting real information there in January, and so I was kind of like, okay, I don't think my trip's gonna, last as long as I was originally planning. So let me kind of start thinking exit strategy. Um, and so I was in Cambodia when that happened. And then I left Cambodia. And where did I go? I went to Taiwan after that. And I had a connection in Hong Kong. And a lot of people, well, if people have been to Asia, you might have known that before the pandemic, mask wearing is like it's a big thing
Normal.
in Asia, particularly China, Hong Kong, Japan. If
Mhm.
even if I just sneeze, so
Mhm.
well before the pandemic, mask wearing was a thing. But I remember I flew from Cambodia and I had a layover in Hong Kong, and the layover was for a while, but it was an overnight layover. But as I was boarding my flight, I noticed I was still I didn't realize the gravity, what was going on, but I
Mm.
was one of few non-Asian people boarding the flight, and everybody has a mask on. And the guy in front of me when I go to board, he like turns around and he offers me a mask, and I'm just like, thank you. And but I don't know like really all of what's going on, but I got some information. And I got to my hotel in Taiwan. And the next day, so nothing happened when I checked in, but the next day is when they kind of started doing protocols. Like they weren't letting anybody into the hotel or any kind of building. They were like checking temperatures and all that stuff. And actually, let me step back. When I arrived in Taiwan, there were doctors at before you even get to customs or bag check or anything like that.
Oh,
There were
wow.
doctors in white coats and everything, and they're like checking everybody when they're going in, and and asking the question, "Have you been to China?" So you're starting to see protocols. So now I'm like kind of like, okay, hey, this might be something kind of wild. Um, and so, and they also, the airports, I think there were only 4 airports in the US that were open. So they closed some of the airports. And I'm trying to get back to Texas, and Texas wasn't open yet. So I'm like, oh man, what, I need to figure out something. But I had some friends that I promised that I would see in Japan. It's okay, well, I'm going to go to Taiwan, go to Japan, and then I got to, figure something out. And
Yeah.
so I go to Japan, same thing. They've got, the doctors and everything, but they also had they had security, and they're like, okay, well, they had signs up, and it's like, if you're coming from China, like you've got to go through this process. If you're coming from somewhere else, you can go here. So they're protocol on everybody, but there was something different for China. And this is kind of a geopolitical thing. So I'm like, I came from Taiwan and I'm going the not China line. And somebody stops me. It's like, oh, you gotta go this way. And it's like, I didn't come from China because it's
Mhm.
Taiwan, but
Mhm.
there, that is still considered China. So they're like, "Were you on this flight?" And so I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay." I'm not trying to break a rule. I thought I was following instructions, so
Right,
I
right.
had to go the other way. And I remember I still have it somewhere, but like they gave you this little slip and it says quarantine on it. So I'm like, I was actually kind of real. I was like, man, what's going on here now? Like, they gonna put us someplace, but that was just to let them know that we had to do a different set of checks. So again, temperature check, all this stuff, and they were doing what were they calling it? Contact tracing. So they wanted to know like where you had
Okay.
come from and then also where you were going. So if something popped up, then they had all this information to know what and where people were coming from. And so then we do all the immigration stuff. So I get to Japan and it's
And this is
somewhat
at what point in time then? You're
this
in Japan now?
is now February.
Okay.
Is February around the 7th.
Mm.
Um and so they opened up an airport in Texas. So as soon as that opened up, like I booked a flight back on points. Um, and
Woohoo!
it's like, yeah, let's get home. And that turned out to be a good thing for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, so I cut my trip, short by that because if I'm gonna get stuck somewhere, I'd rather get stuck at a place I can control, which is home.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there were some people that got stranded in a bunch of places. So one of my hostel roommates from Cambodia, they got stuck in the Philippines for 9 months.
Wow. Oh my
9 months.
gosh.
So what happened? So the Philippines, they banned travel between provinces. And where they were, there wasn't an international airport. So if they had been like in Manila or Cebu,
Right.
somewhere like that, they could have flown home, but they were in a province that did not have an international airport and they were not allowed to travel to the international airport. So they were stuck there for
Wow.
9 months. They're from Canada. I forgot what city. I think West Coast.
Huh.
So yeah, so they were there for 9 months. And like I said, Philippines is awesome, and like it's kind of cool sometimes. You get to stay at an awesome place for a long time. It's a little bit
Right.
different when it's out of your control.
Yeah.
And then, there were some people, and you may know these people, but they got stuck in Poland for, I think it was 3 months with a rented
Wow.
RV from Germany.
Oh!
So, and I think do you know the Howards?
Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike and Ann?
Yeah, they got stuck with the rented
Oh, I didn't
RV,
realize that.
and
Oh.
I was scared to ask them for a while because 'cause I'm like, "Did they have a running bill for that?" And they said, like,
Yeah.
they didn't get stuck with all that, but I was like,
Huh.
but people got stranded, in some places. I knew some people, I met them in Thailand on that trip, but they were from Finland. So a lot of people from Finland go to Phuket for wintertime, because, they get more than
Cool.
4 hours of
Yeah.
daylight and it's an affordable place to stay. But they got stranded there, like they couldn't get home. And the government had to send charter planes to fly because there were so many Finns there to get them back home. But yeah, they were stuck there for a while. So yeah, there's a bunch of things like that, and I just did not want to be one of those stories. So I was like, yeah, let me get
Get
home.
home. Mhm.
So that definitely impacted me. And interesting thing. So obviously, I left a awesome career to take that trip, and that was supposed to set me on a path to going and doing some things. And I had people like they asked me, it's like, hey, well, do you regret leaving your job to go and do that, given what happened, COVID? And I didn't think about it for a second. I was like, heck no, because I have people from, and this was right after the trip, and so I didn't know all this was going to happen, but I still keep in touch with so many people from that trip. So
Mhm.
so if I didn't do that, those people wouldn't be in my life now. I wouldn't have had the things that was going on. And, some of those places, I mean, travel is not super difficult now, but I mean, there's definitely things you have to, consider because like even right now, there's still not as many options for me to get to Asia as there used to be.
Hmm.
So flights are still, there's not as many flights going that way and to a lot of destinations. So, like I said, the options have come down. It's a little more challenging to get places. But yeah, but I wouldn't trade any experience that I had to have, oh well, okay, there's gonna be this pandemic, so I'll, stay at my job for another 2 years and travel in, 2022. Like I said, heck no, I wouldn't trade any of that. So
Cool.
I wouldn't have had the random because I ran into somebody else that just
Oh,
randomly in Phuket, Eric.
oh
So,
yeah.
and you've probably heard this story,
Yeah.
but I
I think
knew.
I remember you guys messaging us being like, "Hey, look who I ran into."
Yeah, so that was super crazy because like, I was traveling through Asia and, like, he was traveling, but, like, him, he bounces, he can switch continents, like, on a week, so
Mhm.
we're like, "Oh, we'll just check in and see what's going on," and so I was in Phuket, and it was my last day. Supposed to be my last day. I was supposed to go change cities, and I remember Eric was traveling. Let me just check on him and say, hey, what's going on? And I'm in Thailand. So I'm in Thailand, but that's big long country,
Right.
and so I'm like, okay, well, where are you in Thailand? So I'm in Phuket. I'm like, oh, I'm in Phuket, but still that's decent sized island, and I'm like, where are you in Phuket? He drops me a pen, and at that moment, he is literally 50 meters away from me.
Come on. Are
50
you
meters
kidding
away
me?
from me. Yeah, he was, like, right down the street around the corner, and they were about to go off on an adventure, so they had met somebody that had come there a whole lot, and they knew this awesome place to go watch sunset, and they were literally leaving right then. So if I had messaged him 5 minutes later, they would have been gone down the road,
I
and
love
I
these
probably would have
stories.
been leaving and going later on. So, like, I messaged at just the right time. We go off to this someplace, and this isn't like that area, like, it's not like a tourist destination or anything like that. I mean, there was, like, maybe a dozen people there at this, like, mountainside, like, little bar type of thing, and so we watch sunset, hang out there, and, like I said, just completely random.
That
Completely
you know
random.
what though? It's not. That's like synchronicity at its best. That
Right?
is such a cool story.
So so super awesome. So,
Wild.
and we actually run into each other random in Japan too.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we're destined to always run into people, so
That's super cool. And do you find too with social media now that the opportunities for that to happen have amplified? I asked because I've had this happen several times with me where I've had like Angel from TravelCon.
Yes. Mhm.
So when I was in Portugal last October, and I tend to not post in real time just for safety reasons and, keeping my head straight and whatever else. I had posted something about being in Portugal and he shot me a message and was like, "Oh, I'm in Portugal too." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing. Where are you?" And kind of similar to your story with Eric, we ended up being in the same city at the same time. His hotel was one street parallel to the one that I was staying at. Yeah, and then it turned out we were both there for work, like separately. I was working with my mom's tour company, MP Tours, and he was doing his thing for work. Our itineraries basically mirrored each other, so we ended up meeting up in a second city in Portugal, but if we hadn't had, like, Instagram to, I don't know, have that little, "Hey, I'm here," it wouldn't have happened. Has that happened with you through social media too?
It's happened a couple of times. So actually, the hostel roommate for Japan, it wasn't live, but as I was talking about the trip, she reaches out and says, "Hey, you're coming to Japan? Like, I live in Japan now," which I had missed, that
Oh,
just that she had relocated. So that was kind of cool to catch that.
yeah.
And I ran into somebody in Australia
Oh,
on that same 4 month trip. I had arrived and I posted. So I don't always post real time, but like if I do
mm.
post, I don't like post, okay, hey, this hotel or anything like that. I just
No,
post
definitely not.
like city because, like I said, if you find me in a city random, it's meant to happen, like Eric, or
Right, right.
um, but I get this message, and the funny thing, it was somebody that I hadn't talked to, um, in probably about a year. But I
Wow.
post a story and they're like, "Hey, are you in Australia now?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Oh, well, I am." And it turned out, so it was their last day and it was my first full day. And so we ended up catching up at a beach, and like I fortunately I don't plan things like minute by minute. I just kind of like let
Right.
things happen. So it just kind of worked
Yep.
out. I was like, okay, well, I'll join you guys and I'll figure out the rest of my itinerary later. And so she left, but then all the people that she was hanging out with, like, that was another travel person she had met either online or like a previous trip. And so she leaves, and now I'm like, oh, I just inherited some new friends. So I
I
had
love it.
friends in Australia to hang out with, and so that was kind of cool. Um, I don't know. I can't think of any other social media
Yeah.
meetings, but like I said, it does help when people kind of like see or kind of help things out. Even it's just like a tip, piece of information. That's
Mhm,
kind of
mhm.
cool to kind of get. So
So neat. I This is one of the reasons why I love travel so much. These happenstance, like, beautiful moments that come about, and then the new connections, and yeah, that's
yeah,
really
and that's
cool.
actually that's actually a good thing. So that's actually the more important thing. So if this had been 20 years ago, yeah, you might travel someplace and meet somebody and you might exchange information or things like that. But though because of social media, you can stay connected more.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I have had reunions with multiple hostel roommates. So I always tell people that that's my favorite. I don't always stay in a hostel, but if I have the opportunity, if it's the right situation, I will stay in a hostel because I almost every trip that I've had, I have connections that I still have from, like I said, nearly all of my places. So I keep in touch with the hostel manager from Iceland, um, Cambodia. I stayed with it was an 8 bedroom dorm, and get this, I stayed 11 days in Cambodia for a
Uh-huh,
hostel,
uh-huh.
and they had a bar that I ran a tab. They cooked food and meals. 11 days, my tab was $111.75. I'm sorry, $112.75 for 11 days.
That's a beautiful thing.
So, it's super,
That's an
super awesome.
American, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 US.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I stayed in touch with so many people there. So there's a comedian from Canada that I still stay in touch with. He and his fiance. There was a girl from Germany who she worked at Cologne Cathedral, so one of the landmarks from Germany.
Mhm.
So I took a trip to Europe 3 years later and went through. She takes a day off but
Oh,
gives me a tour. She's not a tour guide, but she works there, so she takes me on a tour, and we go through, and there's exhibits that are closed or things that aren't even open to the public, and she's like, "This is my friend from the US. Can we go?" And sure, like go in. So I get to see
oh.
all this cool stuff, that nobody got to see that day, and like some people probably didn't even get to see, like period.
Yeah.
So I've had experiences like that. Um, I have another roommate from that same trip. She was from Japan. We reconnected there in Japan, um, and then she's a photographer and journalist too. So kind of got to see some other like non-touristy locations and things like that. Um, I have I met in Singapore. I had some people. They were on holiday from Thailand, and
Mm.
then I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to Thailand, in however many weeks it was." And like, "Well, let us know when you get here." And so
I
they took
love
me, to their areas. And I'm in like a Thai karaoke bar, and I have no idea what anybody's saying, but you can tell when somebody's having fun, somebody's having fun, So
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that was super, super cool to go and do there. But yeah, but because of social media, you were able to
Mm.
keep those connections and then like kind of reconnect in other places. So it kind of snowballs once you get out there because people are always like, Calvin, like, is it ever like lonely when you're out there? It's like,
Mm.
no, I mean, you're as lonely as
Mhm.
you let yourself be. Like, if you don't
Yep.
talk to anybody,
Mhm.
then yeah, you're not gonna have any meaningful connections or experiences. But if you, talk to people and like, and hostels are easy ways to do that because you can't
Yes.
avoid anybody really, so like somebody's there, at some point in time. So you were almost forced to have conversations, and they are almost always cool ones. Like I said, has everybody I met in a hostel been cool that I want to touch base with again? No, but I will sacrifice those one or two not cool people for all the awesome people that I have met.
Yeah, 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 so true. Have you, because you've done a ton of travel and you've got some, like, very far destinations in there, have you ever missed a flight?
I have not missed a travel flight, and probably the reason for that is I had a misfortune of missing a work flight. And
Oh,
so,
ouch.
yeah, so that taught me a lesson. I used to be that person to kinda cut it close, for boarding time, so after that, I'm like, "Nope, not don't wanna deal with that ever, ever, ever again." So I've never missed a flight. Now I thought I was going to miss my first flight in Japan in 2023 because I actually made a mistake on the train and I
Mm,
got on the wrong train and I was kind of going the wrong way.
mm.
And then I probably should have left earlier anyway, but had I gotten on the right train, I would have been fine. But I got on the wrong train and was kind of going the wrong way. And then I realized it. But instead of rolling with it, I kind of tried to make my own train route. But the way have you been to Japan?
I have a couple
Okay.
times, yeah.
Okay, so the trains, like, they're super, super efficient,
Yep.
but they're all tied in together, so rather
Mhm.
than following, like, a maps route, I kinda try to make my own route. So, well, if I get off at this station, I know I can go there from this station, but now, like, I had to wait longer, so now it's making me further behind, and I cut it about as close as you can get it, but I probably if I was in any other country, I probably would have missed my first flight. But
Yeah.
they're super efficient in getting people through, so I didn't, but that was about the closest that I came, to missing a
Wow.
flight.
Huh. Have you ever had any scary experiences, any hospital visits, any close calls?
No hospital visits, I'm fortunate, I have not had anything that would really be considered scary by most standards. I mean, like, not knowing where you're going for a few minutes, I don't call that scary.
Right.
Um, yeah, I haven't the only thing that I can maybe consider like a situation that might not go well, it didn't, but like I was in this is in Cambodia and you're familiar in a lot of places if you're in any tourist, heavy area, like somebody's trying to sell something or whatever. And that's not a bad thing. I know some people are like, oh, they'll scam this or scam that. And so I don't look at it that way. But yeah, there are people that are, trying to sell something and that's, how they earn money, however they
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
But there was a taxi driver and there was the first thing, hey, can I offer you a ride? And so no, I don't need a ride because I have my camera. I'm walking around trying to take pictures of things, and so I turned down the taxi, and then and you may not run into this because as a solo female traveler, but solo male travelers, if there's somebody out, if there's a place where like you'll get propositions of all kinds of
Oh.
things. So first it was like taxi, and I'm like, no, I don't need a taxi. And then it was like, you know, girls. I'm like, no. And then it's like drugs, and I'm like, no. But he's like,
Oh.
he's just persistent, persistent, persistent. And I kind of like playfully, I'm just trying to, hey, I'm just taking pictures, and so I kind of jokingly like raise my camera up like I'm gonna take a picture. And usually, like I run in that situation a lot, and like that'll usually like kind of either end it, they either realize, hey, he's taking pictures, or I don't want my picture taken, and then that
Right.
kind of ends it. But like
Mhm.
here, he kind of gets like hot, and I don't understand what he's saying, but I knew he was not happy that like I raised the camera up, and he's like yelling, 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 and I was like,
Oh.
I think I'm just gonna walk that way, And again, nothing really happened, but like that was probably about the hairiest situation that we ran into.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that wasn't fun.
Interesting,
That wasn't
interesting.
fun.
And you mentioned earlier you spoke a little bit of German when you were young. Did you have to learn Spanish in school at all, or do you know languages other than English? Why are you laughing?
Because I took 2 years of Spanish, at least 2 years. I don't think I took the 3rd year, but I took at least 2 years in, here in Louisiana, but I'm laughing because I don't know much of it at all, and I'm not proud of that, but our Spanish class and if there's anybody I went to high school with, they're probably gonna chuckle at this and agree, but our class was so fun. We
Oh.
just had fun, So I even remember my grades, like I would get top grades like the first grading period and they would kind of go down and I'm like, whoa, we're about halfway through. I don't want to finish that with this. And then it would kind of come back up. But yeah, it was just so fun. Uh, and I didn't take full advantage of that. And I am regretful of that to this day. Like I know, some verbs, where I can kind of know some things. I cannot hold a conversation.
Mm.
I can ask for a beer if there's a lyric in a song from a song. I know that. So, una
Yeah.
más cerveza, por favor. But yeah, I cannot hold a conversation. And actually, as close as I live to Mexico, I've never been. I've been
What?
super close. I have been to places where I can see Mexico in my
Yeah.
travels, but I have not been across the border into Mexico. I should have been one time, and I caught COVID the week before
Ooh.
that trip.
Oh.
So I should have already had that taken care of, but have not yet been to Mexico. The only Spanish speaking country that I've been to Spain for a week. And is Argentina is Argentina Spanish or Portuguese? I forget.
Spanish.
Okay.
Brazil is Portuguese
So,
speaking.
yeah, so those are the only Spanish speaking countries that I've been to.
Cool. If you were to pick up a language, which one would it be?
Um, Prior to the last couple years, it probably would have been Spanish. If I wanted to learn one right now, it probably might be Japanese, even though I
I
haven't
knew you were
started.
gonna say that.
Yeah, I have not started, but like I said, that would probably be the one because this year I was kind of looking at like how many times that I've been to because I've been to 24 countries, but I was kind of going through like which ones I had been to more than one time.
Mm,
And I've been to Japan the most. So I've been to Japan 5 times and I've been to Thailand 5 times, although my Thailand trips were shorter stints
mm,
in some of those, but I've been to both countries 5 times. So I would probably pick that one up. So I dabbled in Russian a little bit because for there's a lot of people from Russia that live in Thailand. Even like signs, you'll see signs they'll be in Thai, Chinese, English, and Russian
mm.
in there. So, and I had run into a number of people from there. I was like, oh, I'm going to surprise them and learn some stuff. And then I realized, I was like, well, this may not be the one, but I, if I take one up, it would probably be Japanese.
That's always been on my list too. It's such a beautiful language, visually, I should say, and auditorily.
Right.
Yeah. How do you navigate? I mean, in North America, we're we're in an interesting and odd position in the world in that North American born individuals tend to be monolingual, whereas people born in the rest of the world tend to know and use two, three, four, five languages in their everyday life. And given that English is the lingua franca at the moment, how do you navigate that privilege, I suppose, of moving throughout the world and your language being the one spoken? What do you do in situations where you don't speak the language of the place that you're in, and what does that look like?
It First off, I don't make assumptions. I see a lot of things where people are like making judgments from something. Well, I went all the way over here and I spent all this money and like they can't even speak English, da 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 da, da whatever. And like that's something that frustrates me so much for people to go and do. And I shake my head, whether it's online or actually seeing it in public. And like, is it awesome if somebody, has English menus somewhere? Certainly is. It makes things easier. Um, Especially, for somebody like me. Like I said, I've improved with it, but I'm a picky eater. So like I want to know, hey, what's in this? So type of thing. I might not want something in this thing.
You're
So
not the close your eyes and
uh,
point at the menu item guy.
no, no, I am not. I need to know almost exactly what's going on in there. So it certainly helps if there's an English menu to go through that. I've been fortunate in some places like Japan when I go, like if I go to like a fancy restaurant, I'm fortunate that I usually have somebody from the country with me. So that makes it a whole lot easier.
Mhm.
But outside, like, you know, I will look for things like, hey, does this menu have pictures? Does that, kind of help you
Yeah.
out? So, because I realize I'm in somebody else's place and I kind
Mm.
of break it down to like a house. Like, would you go into somebody else's house and tell them to run their house like you run your house? Like, do you put your stuff here? Do you, you know, leave your shoes on or off. Like whatever you do in your house, I'm going to do and I'm going to respect that, or I'm not going to go. One or the
Mm,
other. If it's something that I don't agree with or can't handle, I'm not going to go. And I think that's what we should do when we travel someplace also. Um, I will be honest, as much as I do travel, I used to kind of try to, okay, let me kind of learn a couple things
mhm,
to say in any country. And if you're going to one country, it's somewhat easy to do to kind of get a couple phrases. But when I went to Asia, I did 15 countries in, or 12 countries in 15 weeks.
oh my
I
gosh.
can't, I can't pick all these things up, that quickly. So I kind of stopped doing that ever since I did that trip and just kind of, just navigated that. But I, try to just kind of go with the flow. A smile goes a long way.
Mhm,
So if you go in, walking angry somewhere, and they're not going to feel comfortable, and they're not going to be willing to help you, with
mm.
some stuff. But at least if you smile,
It's
sign
true.
language kind of helps out a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't always work out though. So funny story. My first trip to Japan in 2018, I got it was either sinuses or something was going on, but I had like some sniffling going on, and I'm like, okay, well, let me try to go in drugs. Like, you can't just go someplace and get, over the counter drugs. Like, you have to talk to a pharmacist. So I incorrectly assumed that a pharmacist would know English. So I go in and pharmacist doesn't know English. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? And so I'm making signals and like all this and, making coughing noises. So he's like, and he goes and he gets something and gives it to me and I buy it and I take it, and I felt better, but, like, I didn't go away, and I this was kinda towards the end of my trip, and I get back, and then, like, weeks later, I realize I've got this app on my phone called Google Translate. Completely forgot about, and I'm like, "Okay, well, what did he give me?" And, a lot of people don't know even, like, you could type stuff in, but you can also take pictures and
Right.
it'll translate the words, so,
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't think about that, but, like, 2 weeks later, I think about it, I was like, "What did he give me?" And he gave me aspirin. That was it. So that's why I didn't feel anything, but, like, it
Yeah.
didn't fix, the sign or whatever was causing the sinus thing, so that was a not quite a fail, but I didn't get exactly what I was trying to get to at that time, so that
Right, and
was,
in some ways, that was probably, an okay thing too that he went the aspirin route instead
y
of
true, true.
giving you some it could have
So
been something else not so great.
right. So we were in the neighborhood. But
Yeah.
yeah, but so I don't make assumptions. I also, on the flip side of that, when somebody happens to know English and can help me in communicating, whether it's their second, third, or like I say, in some cases that might be their fourth language, I don't make anybody feel uncomfortable about their
Mm.
English
Mhm,
because
mhm.
again, like you had mentioned, some people they know two, three, four multiple languages. I know one.
Yeah.
I am not going to judge anybody else for how they sound on their second, third, or any. If there's not their native language, I'm not judging you at all. If I can understand what
Yeah.
you're saying, I'm grateful. If anything, I'm not
Yeah.
judging how it came out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's my philosophy. And even with English, depending on where you learn English, some words mean different things. So I've had
You and I have had this conversation on your podcast.
yeah. But yeah, words mean different things. And I've not run into big differences on those things, but like again, I'm a picky food person. And I was somewhere and I think this was in the Netherlands, but there was like a international food court. So each court was like from a different place. And I went to I don't remember which country in Africa this place was from, but there was some food and it was something like rice, and again, I mentioned rice and gravy earlier.
Mm,
Louisiana staple, and like in Louisiana, like gravy is kind of made with like either like a chicken, with like flour and stuff like that, and it's usually brown, but there's a white gravy also, but one of those two. And but I know what that is, and that's
mhm.
the only thing I've ever seen called gravy. And so I'm there and it was some like fish and gravy. It's like, oh wow, I'm gonna have like rice and gravy in Amsterdam from Africa. And I, place my order. I go pick up my food and there's like some red and green stuff on it. And I'm like, what? I said, I asked for rice and gravy. And they're like, this, yeah, that's what it is. That's what you got. I thought they gave me the wrong order, but
Yeah.
gravy was something different from that country. And I was like, oh, well, I can't even get mad because I got what I asked for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will probably never have that again, but I ate it, I got through it, but it was just different,
Yeah.
So, and just different things like, when you buy, fries, like, they'll ask you, "Do you want sauce?" Which that can
Mm,
be ketchup, that can be mayonnaise, that can be, something else or whatever,
some sort of surprise. Yeah.
so yeah, so I learned about the sauce because 'cause I'm usually a no sauce person, but I had to learn that I
Okay.
was a no sauce person.
Okay.
Um and then, like, I'm not a big vegetable person, even though I've been evolving, but, like, if you get, like, sandwiches in Europe, sometimes, like, certain countries, they'll call it, salad.
Mm,
"Do you want salad on the sandwich?" And I'm thinking that's maybe, like, a side thing or whatever. It's like, "No, you're
right.
putting no, I don't want salad on on my sandwich, no salad." So, but, yeah, there's words that, can kinda trip you up if you only know one definition of that word.
Yes, yeah, it's so true. You mentioned Google Translate earlier. How has tech changed the way that you travel, or how has tech influenced your travels over the last few decades? Especially given that you also work in travel and tech with content creation and whatnot. What does that look like for you?
The biggest thing, for somebody like me, I don't necessarily need to have every day or moment planned out for my trip. And I know I could not travel with some people probably because of that. Like I have traveled to countries and I have been on the plane and not knowing where I'm going to stay that night.
Yeah.
I'll book it either, in the immigration line or on the plane, kind of research some things. I don't do that for every trip, because there's some places where it's probably not a good idea to do that for, but there's some places if I am comfortable that there's going to be options, then I may not do it, right away. And that's particularly like on my long trip because I may not have known, okay, am I leaving today or am I leaving 2 days? So if I mapped all that out, I would have been stuck in a specific itinerary, and that actually would have messed me up a couple of times because I thought I was going to a country one time and I ended up not because of a volcano in the Philippines.
Oh,
So I was like, "Yep, nope,
okay.
not going back to the Philippines right now. I'm gonna go someplace else."
Right.
But if I had, done stuff in advance, then that would have been a little bit trickier to deal with. So technology does help you to kind of do things last minute if it suits your style. Like I said, I know that's not for everybody, but for me, it's really, really helpful because I can now, like, if I'm staying in a place for a week, if it's my first time going there, I usually do not book the whole time. I'll book
Mm,
the landing, okay, I got a place to stay when I arrive in like a couple days. But if it's a big city, I might want to see a different part of the city, or I might get there and realize that, hey, it's not as easy to transit around, or something like that, So technology really, really helps out with logistics. Um, it also helps out with really you can get lost now, but, like, it's not the end of the world now. I mean, yeah, you
yeah.
can, without, GPS, you can figure it out eventually maybe, but, yeah, it might be a little more stressful getting someplace, but it's really cool to kinda see, "Okay, hey, my lodging is way over here, and even though I'm this
Right.
way, it's not the end of the world." And then definitely for translation. So, again, I'm a picky eater, and it's probably easy to order things directly off the menu as it is. But on my thing, when I check out my McDonald's around the world, if it's not in an English speaking country, I've got to be able to tell them no ketchup, no pickles, no onions, And so I'll type that out and I can just show it to them, and they, okay, yeah, I get it. I can get it ordered. So,
Yeah.
um, and Google Translate actually told me I was trespassing once.
Oh.
So, I was in Thailand, and I think it was my first trip there, so this was 2019,
Mm.
And I usually like to go to things early in the morning so I can, kind of catch it with not a lot of people around and get some decent pictures and stuff like that. And so I show up to this museum early and hey, I'm the first one here. Walk into a gate that was open and security guard walks up to me and I don't understand what he's saying to me, but I'm, just thinking I'm early and where do I go? And so finally I realized he's really trying to tell me something important. So I type out and I, give him the phone and I'm just double checking, is this the museum? And yeah, he basically told me that it was closed for remodeling and I wasn't supposed to be there. So it wasn't like a bad situation, but I wasn't supposed to be there. I just walked in like an open door like that the workers were at. So yeah, so I found
Right.
out I was trespassing through Google Translate.
Nice. Do you, when you do prep for your travels, do you have any go-tos, whether it's blogs, podcasts, YouTube, social media, or do you go to people preferably that you know that have been there or that live there, or are there any colleagues in the industry that you would want to shout out based on the information that they have?
I don't know that I have a go-to, because if I'm going someplace, it is either some history that I'm tied to, and there's
Mm,
actually there might be a couple. I don't know, like a go-to like travel history blog. I mean, it's something I've kind of considered getting in and going and doing, but I do cover things more than history, so I'm not sure that that's
mm,
my specific lane to fill.
uh-huh,
Um, but I usually just kinda search by, like, what can I find out about different things. So, um, and then I also go to places because I know somebody there. So, I
mm,
might get, stuff from them. So, like, I'm not I don't wanna, I guess, disparage anything, but I'm not like a Lonely Planet person or like any of the other things out there. What I have done though, just as far as like trying to have options of things to go and do, even if you're not staying in like a short-term stay, some of the apps like Airbnb and even some of the hotel apps, they will have things for like experiences that you can go for like tours and things like that. There's things like Get Your Guide,
mhm,
that can and I may or may not actually book the tour, but it just kind of gives me like ideas on like what I can do. And then from
right.
that, I'd say, okay, can I get context by having a guide with me for this? Or is it just something that I want to put on my radar? Because if it's something that shows up as a tour option, it's obviously something that somebody says is important to see.
Right.
So it's something that I can go to put onto a list, but I kind of piecemeal my trips or itineraries together.
Yeah. Um, what has been a new skill that you've honed from traveling or one that you've improved?
I don't know if this qualifies as a skill, but patience.
Oh, definitely that's a
Yeah.
skill. For
Yeah,
sure.
patience because, if you have traveled more than one time, something's not gonna go right.
Mhm.
And you can, choose to get bent out of shape about it and, have that energy, for that day or affect your trip or things like that. But yeah, it's made me much, much more patient. Because I remember I remember once when I was in grade school, my first job, and I'm going to cash my first paycheck before direct deposit was a big thing, and I came back home because there was one person in line in front of me and made the mistake of telling my father
Fun.
that. Made the mistake of telling my father that, and so got scolded a little bit and got sent back to the bank. But yeah, but that's how impatient that I used to be. And yeah, so things would, either frustrate me a whole lot easier. But yeah, but when like a flight's delayed, like I've been in an airport, I spent 13 hours in an airport in Baltimore because of delays.
Mm.
And if I hadn't already been on that, patience journey, that would have been a heck of a day, dealing with
Right.
that, because it wasn't just like, hey, you're delayed 13 hours. It was like 30-minute delay, 30-minute delay, 40-minute,
Right.
so for 13 hours. So, but it was actually probably it was one of my more peaceful days because I was like, hey, I can't control when that plane gets here when it's fixed. And I can either, raise my blood pressure about it or talk to, some of the people. And funny thing is, I met a retired pilot during that delay, and we still keep in touch
Cool.
12 years later, so if I
Wow.
had been, a jerk, griping about, this or this or that, we probably wouldn't have even, had a conversation at all, so
Right.
um yeah, but there's been things from, various trips. You go to the Philippines, you're gonna be waiting in line for something. If you go to the train station in Japan at the wrong time, you're gonna be waiting in line, for the next train. That's, coming fairly quickly, but there is some waiting, and there's hurry up and wait, but travel involves a lot of wait. It involves a lot of things where you think something is gonna happen and it doesn't happen the way that you expect it to. So yeah, patience has
Yeah.
been a big, big improvement. It's helped me.
That's such a fantastic answer. I can relate to that as well. But we won't go there. Um, Is there a type of travel that you haven't tried yet that you'd like to?
Um, I don't know that I've done are you as far as, like, method of travel or
Yeah, I would say method of travel, like not a location, but a way of traveling or a way of being in a new place.
I've been on one cruise. So it was cruise, but I did take a cruise to Antarctica. So I chose the most difficult cruise of all,
Yeah.
for my first cruise. Um, I don't I've traveled by train cross country, traveled by plane. I have not done a crossing borders on a bus. So
Okay.
I've not done a land border crossing. Um, so maybe that is one. I've heard that can be interesting
Mhm.
for some places. So if that's a type of travel, that is one that I think I would do at least once. What other types of travel are there? Am I forgetting some type?
I think it could be anything from like the transportation that you take to like adventure versus cruise versus luxury versus,
So
whatever, your solo travel.
actually, here's an easy one, and I almost did this right before 2020, and I'm actually glad that that didn't turn out. But I actually would be interested in doing van travel
I was
going
wondering if you
through
would
the
say that.
US. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually I seriously before I took my Asia trip, I was actually looking into that for 2020, and I
Really?
that yeah, so that's
No
actually
way.
I'm really happy that didn't come together, because that yeah, that would have been ugly. Because I watched some people do that through 2020. So, but I had seriously looked into it. Like I knew the van that I wanted,
Which
and
one?
everything. It was a Heimer.
Oh, I don't know
And
that
I
one.
so they and that was the other thing. They ended up going out of business in the US too. So yeah, so a
Oh,
bunch of things that turned out to be something that didn't work out, that was a blessing for a lot of reasons.
cool.
But it's similar to Winnebago.
Cool.
So I had looked into that, and so I 2020, that's when I turned 50. So I had this thing that I was gonna like travel to all 50 states in 50 weeks for my 50th birthday. That was like
Oh
supposed to be what
my
that was
gosh.
for. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, people are like, Calvin, that's crazy. But it probably it would have been fun, and it would have been crazy. It would have been crazy. But even when I said that I was leaving my job to go travel, Asia for 6 months,
Yeah.
not everybody thought I was crazy. Like, some people, hey, that's cool. Like, I wish I could, like, have the guts to do something like that. I'm happy, that somebody is doing that. But I had two people. They called me, and they didn't come right out and say it, but like they're like, "Is everything okay?" They thought I was dying and like taking my last hurrah trip.
Oh my
Yeah,
lord.
so two people called me to ask
Oh
that.
my.
But yeah, but they weren't comfortable in coming right out, so they were kinda like just kinda like asking around, and I'm kinda like, what are you asking?" And, and so, they're like, "Yeah," they're like, "Who leaves?" Because it was it was a very, very good job. I mean, if I ever see a single paycheck that high ever again, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing really good in life if I ever get to that point again.
Yeah.
But I walked away from that, and
Yeah.
some people would call that crazy, but I have had so many awesome experiences since that point, that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Mhm.
And it's changed my outlook on thing, because, like,
Mhm.
number one, because I had an awesome job that paid so well, I bought a lot of things that really in the grand scheme of things aren't important. I mean, if people somebody has them and that's important to you, that's fine. I'm not making judgments, but like you don't necessarily have to have that. Like it's not a
Mhm.
necessity to do things. And then obviously, traveling and seeing people with less things and that they're happy and they have joy. It's something like I said, I have a lot less stress in my life. I may have stressful moments, but like, hitting a sales quota or something like that, is in it's there were some stressful times, and I had not my last company, but I had a company that I worked at one time. I could feel my blood pressure rising because of how stressful that day or that week was. And I
Oh.
actually there was a clinic in the parking lot or like across the lot, and I felt it so bad. I was like, I wonder, and I went and my blood pressure was elevated like right then. It wasn't normal, but
Oh,
it had
wow.
elevated because of how stressful that day was. And so I've not had anything like I've had stresses in travel, but I've not had anything, that led to, unhealthy stress. I would say, if anything, I've had quite the opposite. So, like I said, some people might think that it was crazy, but like I said, I've gained a lot out of it,
Mhm.
personally, health wise, and then also the connections that I've made, whether it was just connection for that brief time that were in the same airspace, or if people that I've stayed in touch with, because one of the things, and I don't know if we've already talked about this or not, but like one of the things that I get from travel, and I think everybody gets from travel, is we all have opinions on everything, but your opinions are based on like the sample size of experiences that you had, whether that's a place or the people that you interact with. And the more that you have differing and diverse experiences, it it helps out with so many things. Most of my discussions, they've kind of been insightful. We end up talking about how our different governments work, things like that. So I might learn something about their government. The funny things are just like misconceptions. So I've had
Mhm.
um people where, okay, oh well, you're from Texas, like, how many guns do you have? It's like I personally don't have any. Like I know how to use them. I've done them, and I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I don't own, like, I don't have a arsenal like some people. But like they were like, yeah, how many guns do you have? And do you have a horse and things like that. So there
Oh,
there are certain stereotypes that people, it's if that's your only, like, you saw something on TV, you're one person
right.
from Texas,
Yep.
then you might think, for good or bad, that happens. And for me specifically, as a Black American, I've had some unique discussions. I was in Argentina on a tour, and
Mm.
there was a couple. So Europe people, it's a big thing for like when you graduate from grade school to take a holiday,
Gap year,
and
yeah.
so they were on their first trip out of country and were traveling somewhere, and this was in 2022. And they had asked me about something like, do you feel safe in the United States? And I didn't
Mhm.
get what they were talking about at first, but they were talking about like the police brutalities and the deaths and things like that. And so their whole thought was that every Black person is hiding from the police. Yes. Are there some bad things going on with police and some unfortunate things happen to people? Yes. But it's not every day. And like I said, I told them, if it was like that, I would have moved. So,
Right.
but that was their whole existence. So traveling, you run into everybody, you're kind of crossing from different things, and they have their experience and their base of knowledge from their own life, but then they also have a different, like, their vision of the people that they interact with is based on what they have. So if they haven't seen Americans, if they haven't met Canadians, like, they might think whatever they think, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's like they just have that slice that they got from whatever media source that
Right.
they received that thing from, and so getting out and traveling, it helps you to one, meet other people and learn about them, but then they also get to learn about you and where you're from. So that's a benefit. And like I said, I think, that there is a unique perspective that you get from seeing different things and places. So I think
Mhm.
that you can go and do that because going back to the Third Culture Kids book, there was actually something in there that they said that people that do not have experiences elsewhere, like if they've not left their city or not left maybe their state or something like that, that they have a almost like a fear of
Mm.
these things that they don't know because they don't know them. And
Mhm.
it's a natural thing to kind of feel a little bit of apprehension about something that you're not familiar with. Now, what you
Mhm.
do with that, that's a whole different thing. But if you're not familiar with something, like you have some sort of doubt, for a second. Now you might say, okay, well, I'm gonna try this out and see. There is something if you're not familiar with something. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just how you handle those things. But I was interesting to see from that book that people that don't have those experiences are not only maybe fearful, but they're also now a little bit fearful about people that have had those experiences. Because now it's
Mm.
like, okay, well, now I feel intimidated or less than because this
Mm.
person's done this, this, and that, and so then it kind of can snowball into this thing. Now, did they get curious about what you've done and want to learn from that? Or are they now, built up a wall because, okay, well, hey, well, we're different because this and that, and I haven't done or can't or whatever. So, that was probably the most interesting part from that book is not necessarily the people that have had those experiences, but when they did the comparison from the people that have and have not, basically.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that I want to do from my cubicles to passport side is to not only inspire people to travel, but to also kind of help them, with some tools. I remember when I took my Asia trip, some of the things people, oh man, Calvin hit the lottery or whatever, but on that trip, that was 15 weeks, almost 4 months. I did not spend, I came in below 8,000 US for that trip, so now can anybody just go out and just say, and do that right away? Maybe not, but it's attainable. Like you don't have to even go somewhere for 4 months. So if you can go somewhere for 4 months for that, where can you go, for less money for maybe less time? Like I said,
Yeah.
I think anybody can go somewhere if they set their mind to it, but you have to prioritize what
Mhm.
is important to you. And what I
Mhm.
realized, I looked at what I was doing, and I was doing a lot of partying, a lot of nightlife, which, you see some people's bar tabs, and, that can take up some budget. Uh,
Yeah.
and I was a big sports fan. I was traveling to American football games. So,
Oh, yeah, those
flying,
are not
across the
cheap.
country going and doing that. So, yeah, from between tickets and the flights and US hotels, I was spending a bunch of money on, some stuff. And then half of those trips, I probably wasn't happy because my team lost, you know?
Oh.
So when I realized that, travel was something that I wanted to do more of, I prioritized, like I've not been to an American football game since 2018. But
Wow.
I ramped up my travel in 2019 and have been doing that since then. If you want to make it happen, there are some steps that you have to take to do that. I sold my house because I wasn't there. I was gone half the year, and I said, "Why am I paying for this when those can be, either flights or something else?" Or a alarm went off where they thought my house was on fire while I was in Asia.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
so, yeah, that was kinda tricky there because there was nobody there to open the door,
Oh.
and I came back from that trip, and they broke my door to get inside.
Oh.
So, so I was like, "Yeah, that, was not fun." So
I feel you on being away when something happens. When I was in Guatemala last month, there very luckily, I had a friend staying in my place, and I kid you not, Calvin, within 5-10 minutes of me leaving, like, I hadn't even left KW and wasn't even on the 401 to go to Toronto yet. He sends me a text and he goes he has a bit of dark humor. He goes, "Don't panic, but your ceiling is leaking." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me. So I call him and it's literally like we're video calling and there's literally a river of water. It's not dripping. It's like a proper stream that's coming down through my ceiling and I haven't even been gone 10 minutes. I
Oh,
was gone for a month. So if I had been gone that whole time and he hadn't stayed here, I don't even want to
right.
go there, but I hear you about not being home and things happening and
Yeah, so
yeah,
so I fixed that problem, although it did cause me other problems that I didn't think about.
for
So,
sure.
yeah, so
Definitely.
I sold the house, and then I took right after I sold the house, I was gone for, like I was gonna be gone for 5 weeks in Europe, and then I it finally hit me. I was like, "Where'd I put my car?" I didn't
Right?
I didn't even think about that, like, I'm literally it was, like, the day before I was gonna leave, I was like, "What am I gonna do with my car?" And I was like, I could have parked it at the airport or something like that, but that would have been a heck of
Hefty.
a bill when I got back, so I was like, "Oh, I gotta think about that now." So, so yeah, so that it changed a couple things, but I like this form better than the other one, and I will probably settle down at some point.
Mhm.
Like I said, I had, and you know about this, but I had some life circumstances kind of change a little bit where I kind of had to slow down travel last year and kind of
Mhm.
get back to things right now. But like I said, I will probably get a home base at some point soon because it was originally supposed to be 2 years, supposed to be a 2 year
Mm.
experiment. And it turned out to be a good experiment, so I kept it going for a little bit. But
Mhm.
there's pros and cons of being completely, untethered to having at least a home base to go at some point. So there will be
Yep.
a home base at some point.
Exciting, exciting. I feel like my energy is swapping from yours right now where I've had a home base for I can't even believe I'm saying this, like 7 years, which doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm feeling that itch to get rid of the home base and get back at it again full time, as they say, but, moving on because I wanna be respectful of your time, and we've got a couple of things left here. With the help of my guests, I'm creating a travel playlist for people to listen to as they're on the road. And so I'm wondering what is one song that either sums up your travel style or reminds you of a particular trip?
So my song is actually it's Bobby McFerrin and Don't Worry, Be Happy. And
Oh.
it ties back to the skill that you mentioned earlier, the patience. Like I said,
Mhm.
there are a lot of things that can get you a little out of sorts, bent out of shape on a trip if you let it. And like I said, if you just kind of take things as they go and don't plan too much and just kind of like,
Mm.
hey, some of the best parts of your trip are going to be things that you either don't plan or is involved with a change of your plans. So if you kind of go into it with that mindset or kind of open to the things that are presented, then like I say, it's going to be a much better experience for you. And it might even be some things that you either run into or try and say, I am never going to probably do that again, but it was a cool experience to kind of yeah kind of go through that. So if you go into it with open mind, open heart, then it's going to make your experience a whole lot better.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. All right. You ready for a speed round?
Speed round.
In one word or one sentence, where was your last trip?
Japan.
Where is your next trip?
Next trip might be Japan again. Depends on work, but might have work
Okay.
there.
Okay. Is this photographing or one of your tours that you do?
Photographing.
Okay. Very cool. What is your dream destination?
Ooh, dream destination that I haven't been to already. I wouldn't mind actually living in Japan. Like that would be like a super like dream because that would be a change of a destination. I need to get somewhere on the African continent. So I'm gonna go with not Morocco. I want to get to it's gonna be on the eastern coast, like somewhere. I wanna do Kilimanjaro. That is actually something that's
Mm.
on my list.
Oh, wow.
I want to do
Okay.
Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Alrighty. Do you prefer to see many places or to get to know one really well?
Both. Both.
Okay. Bougie or budget?
Budget.
Solo travel or with others?
Both. Both. They're
Yeah.
'cause I do solo travel and I enjoy solo travel, but I enjoy introducing places that I've been to others, and that's what Japan last was, so it's cool
Mm.
seeing some place that you've been to and that you're familiar with through other people's eyes for the first time.
So true. Yeah, we'll have to include information about your tours in the show notes, so I'll get that link from you as well. Do you prefer guided tours or like a choose your own adventure?
Mostly choose your own adventure, but if it's a place that I've never been to before, I found it helpful to have a private guide as much as possible for like it's kind of like an orientation. So
Nice. And do you like to do that because of the photography or just in general you
that
prefer?
is just a like almost orientation, and I may
Okay.
not even do as many pictures then. I'm kind of taking in that person's information and guide. Now I might go back to those places
Right.
later on my own, but it's a good like orientation.
Cool. Cool. Would you prefer to travel in the ocean or outer space?
Ooh, well, outer space, because from kindergarten until algebra 2 in high school, I was going to be an astronaut
I
until I
didn't know that.
yeah, until I figured out that I was not good at math. So,
That'll do it. Do you have a favorite travel content creator or you wanna shout out, anyone in the space that you think is doing an awesome job?
um, one of my I would consider him actually probably a mentor as well, Eric Prince. He goes by Minority Nomad. He is
Yeah.
one
Hi,
of the
Eric.
first people even before my, TravelCon adventures that, I was aware of him before that, so I had been following him, and he has been inspirational to me because the way that he actually looks at the world, so he most
Mm,
people, they kind of there's a generic way of doing or looking at things, and he is completely different than that, like, he has his own view, and like I say, it helps people to actually think and use their brain about
mhm.
how they're traveling, why they're traveling. So, very inspirational for me.
Yeah, I would double down on that one. Eric's awesome. Do you have a favorite mode of transportation?
Mode, I mean, because I'm flying so far, airlines, or if you're talking about in country transportation.
Your choice.
Okay, so I fly a lot, but probably in country transportation, it's either going to be a tie between bullet trains in Japan or tuk-tuks in Thailand. That's a
Nice,
cool
nice.
way, open air way of travel.
Yeah. Planned trips or spontaneous trips?
Uh, on the scale, they're closest to spontaneous, but I like if I'm traveling international, I obviously know when I'm gonna go, but I don't necessarily know everything that I'm gonna do when I get there.
Yeah. Are you an underpacker or overpacker?
I am still an overpacker, but not by most people's definition. Like I traveled to Asia, my 15-week trip. I took a 30-liter backpack. That was all I had
Mhm,
in my camera bag, and
mhm.
I still felt that I was overpacked. 'Cause
Really?
'cause I didn't use everything in there, like, I stuffed all these T-shirts and shorts, and I found that I didn't use some of them, like, I got my favorite shirts and my
Your
favorite
merino?
shorts, and, there was laundry yep. Yep,
Yeah.
are we allowed to plug anybody or
Yeah, go for it. You
so,
know, especially if it's
yep.
helpful to somebody else, for
So,
sure.
yeah, merino wool from Unbound Merino is awesome. Not
Mm.
sponsored, but they're awesome to help with saving space in your travel.
Yeah, definitely. What is the most overrated destination you've been to?
Overrated? I I'm not sure if I can answer that question because like that kind of goes into either, favorite or least favorite, and I don't know that that's fair because unless you spent a lot of time, I haven't spent like if you spent a year in some place or something, I think maybe you kind of have some space to say that, but I think if you haven't lived in a place for a significant amount of time, your experience is just like a slice of thing, and I don't know that it does justice to either overly raise
Mm,
or put down a place
mm.
because it may have been you missed something that would have completely changed that outlook. So if you stay
I
there for a year, then you can say that. And I've not done that except for Germany, and I don't think Germany is overrated. So
mhm.
I don't think I can answer that one.
I really like that response, the way that you broke down why. I'm not gonna ask you the next question then. We're gonna skip it. What home comfort do you miss the most when you're away?
A lot of the home comforts that I enjoy, I can find them because, like, I love a good burger every once in a while, but really, I guess driving my own car is
Mm,
one, 'cause, I mean, I do a lot of thinking, when I'm driving, brainstorming, things like that, so when I'm here driving, I mean, that, is a comfort. Um, I know some would say, sleeping in your own bed, but, I mean,
mm.
a bed, you're not there for that, you're asleep.
Yeah, yeah. What's the best piece of travel advice you've received?
I mean, just go, that's the easy one, is it to just go. Um, but something else is, smile. I said there's so
Mm,
much that you can get whether you know what somebody's saying or anything like that. A smile goes so far in especially if you need help. If you
mhm,
need help, if if you got an anxious look on your face, even if you're nervous or sweating inside, like a smile goes a long way towards, getting somebody that may be deciding, hey, do I or should I help this person? Or maybe even if somebody might be thinking, okay, hey, is this a target or not a target? Like a smile can be, it's a good uh weapon, it's a good asset. So yeah, so just don't not go. Like take the trip. There's never a right time to go anyway. So if it's
mm.
something that you want to do it. And the sooner that you do it, the better.
Yep. Cool. Worst piece of travel advice?
Worst piece of travel advice. And this is almost going to be the opposite of what I just said. Like don't go. Like when people say don't go to something, like don't not do something because somebody says that it either wasn't um fun or whatever, because again, your experience is your experience. I had somebody that went to a country I was about to go to,
Mhm.
and they were unfortunately they were robbed
Mm,
on the trip, and I hesitated for a minute. I was like, oh wow, I'm about to go there, like should I go there now, and I ultimately decided to go, but I didn't have any of that experience. But if I had made that judgment on what happened to my friend, then I would have missed out on that. Actually, is probably, I don't rank countries, but it is, if I were ranking countries, it would be in my top countries of places that I would enjoy spending extended time in. So,
mhm, mhm,
yeah, don't necessarily take anybody's advice just on face value.
mhm, mhm. Have your own experiences. Do you prefer house sitting, couch surfing, hostels, Airbnbs, or hotels?
I'm going to choose hostels and hotels. So it's situational. Like it really depends on the country,
Mhm,
on what makes the most sense. I try to do hostels as often as I can. The only times that I do not is if the logistics aren't good. Like I used to kind of have Airbnbs above hotels, but the landscape is kind of changing there, and there's still a time and a place
mhm,
for Airbnb or any kind of short term rental. But there, if there's going to be a problem, if you are looking at what short term kind of does to the local community, a lot of those places where that exists. But like I said, there's still a time and a place for it, but it's
mhm.
probably those three, but in order: hostel, hotel, short term.
Cool. Window seat or aisle seat?
Used to be all team window seat. Um, I will not stick to that if I'm flying overnight, because you can't see anything anyway. But
Mm,
outside of that, like I have to be window seat if at all possible.
nice. Describe yourself as a traveler in 3 words.
Words. 3 words. Curious,
Mhm.
open, curious, open. Three. I thought it was gonna be hard to stop at three.
I would have added friendly in there for you.
Well, that is one. I took that to mean like outward, well, or for myself. So curious, open. We can go with friendly. Um, yeah, we can go with friendly. Curious, friendly. So what do you call it? I'm now at a loss for words, but I'm more I'm more brave with certain things
Mm,
when I go out, and I don't know what the right word for that is. Like I will try things like I've only had ramen in Japan.
okay.
And that was I was there and somebody learned that I'd never had it and they're like, we gotta fix this. So um yeah, I experiment with food a little more away from home than when I'm at home. I'm more
Cool.
set in my ways here.
Brave. I like that.
So it
Yeah.
food adventurous, I guess, but
Only at McDonald's. No, I'm joking.
no, no, I no,
No, I'm
I
bugging you.
have, yeah, I have eaten some pretty interesting things. I have plucked stuff out of shells and yeah.
Cool. Cool. Um, for you, what is the best part of travel?
Really just expanding, collecting experiences. Because
Mhm.
like I said, each place, even if it's something that didn't go cool, I mean, it's still a story. And if you didn't take the trip, then you wouldn't have that experience to share. So, like I said, getting out and seeing that the world is not as scary as sometimes that the media and maybe people make it out to be.
Mhm.
We all want the same things at the end of the day. Like so, we want to be safe and enjoy life and enjoy each other when we take the time to meet each other. But yeah, the experiences.
Mhm. What about the worst part of travel?
The worst part, it would in a lot of cases, it would probably be a lot easier if you could, maybe teleport someplace, and not have to be in the air for so long. I think the longest single flight that I've been on is 16 hours. I'd be nice if
Whoa.
those flights were uh were shorter, but sometimes some of those things, it's the journey is part of the experience, like the 2-day trip to Antarctica.
Very much
So
so. Yeah.
I've told people that I've discovered now that you can fly and skip that. That I would not recommend that. Because I said you
Yeah.
miss so much on that. On that the cruise if you don't take that, and that is bonding with the people. Before we get out and start
Right.
exploring. And they taught us about the continent on the way. So you're not going to catch that in a couple hours flight.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back on the podcast to talk to us about Antarctica and the Drake Passage and all the experiences that you had there. Yeah.
So,
What's the best travel app?
the best travel app. I'm gonna. I know there are other apps out there, but I'm gonna say Google Translate.
Cool. Do you have a favorite travel book or movie? And it doesn't have to be like the story was about traveling. It could just be something that's set in another place or about another culture.
There was a series of books that I used to read. I think I've kind of gone through most of them now. The author's name was Wilbur Smith, and he either lived or he's from South Africa, but he wrote a lot of what I call historical fiction
Mhm.
um, about stories in the African continent. So there was a series from Egypt. There was a series in South Africa where they literally walked through like the beginning stages of colonial South Africa all the way through World War II. But it was
Mm.
like a series type of thing. So
Cool. Thank you for that. Last question. What is the best gift for a traveler?
the best gift for a traveler, uh, that anybody can give, or just period? Because I'm gonna
You
say,
choose.
huh?
What do you have in mind? What you choose?
I'm saying miles.
Miles!
Miles or miles or points.
Yeah, points and miles for
So,
sure. And we didn't
yeah.
even talk about that really that much this time either, but yeah.
Yeah, if anybody can get yeah, if you can make anything that can reduce costs of travel
Mhm.
for a traveler, that I don't think anybody would ever be upset about that. And so there's probably not a whole lot of scenarios where that can happen, but if there is, yeah, that's an awesome one.
Yeah, I agree, and for any Canadians who are listening, you're in luck because I have a course teaching you how to earn and use points and miles, so that'll be in the show notes.
So
Thanks, Calvin, I did not pay you to say that
right up.
either.
Yeah,
That was a
so
great little setup.
there's an American that's probably that you know is probably gonna have one pretty soon.
Are you starting it? No way!
So
That's cool.
I have yeah,
If and when that's up and running, we'll add it to the show notes.
cool stuff.
Yeah. Calvin, that was so nice to talk with you today. Like, you and I get to chat through WhatsApp and whatnot, but we haven't had a proper catch up in a while.
Right.
So thank you for being here and for sharing your time and your stories with us.
And we only talked a few minutes.
Only one or two.
So oh, one thing I do wanna say though, you cannot
Yeah.
move until I get back up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Toronto.
So, yeah, I have to yeah, I've not been there since the pandemic. It was becoming an every year country for
Yeah.
me, and I
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I've not since then, I haven't been back up there, so
Okay, well, I make no promises, but if you're this way, maybe I'll just come back and visit you.
alright, that'll work.
Yeah. Before I let you go here, where can people find you? And is there anything else that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
The easiest place, just because it's probably the shortest, username to put in, is just Calvin Chronicles on Instagram. My bio links to everything else that I have. I'm on YouTube, I'm on another Instagram, I've got a website. I had a Facebook, uh, page before the it's almost a year ago now when all that stuff got hacked, but
Mm.
um, there's a newsletter link that's out there. So yeah, so just go to the Calvin Chronicles Instagram, and the bio link has every other place that you would ever think about wanting to see me.
Awesome. Awesome. And you and I will cross paths in person soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Calvin. We'll chat again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.